Hello, I'm Dick Conklin, and I'm pleased to be part of introducing the Emergency Response Plan form to our community. The Emergency Response Plan form was developed in response to community, consumer, and family expressions of need to more effectively communicate with law enforcement and other emergency personnel. The form will allow you to list important medical, psychiatric, and contact information to better assist law enforcement and emergency personnel if they're called to assist you during a crisis or emergency situation. The emergency response form will allow you to list your medication, support system, therapist, and hospital preference information. If law enforcement or other emergency response personnel are called to assist you in a crisis or emergency situation, simply providing them this form will give them important information that you want them to have in order to assist you in providing care, listing hospital preferences, and other important information to help manage the situation.
The emergency response plan is an important communication tool for law enforcement. As most of you realize, very often the first indication we get of any kind of need for service or emergency is through our communication centers and our dispatchers. So the family members having that information readily available in the emergency response plan can immediately communicate that vital information to a dispatcher who's in radio contact with the responding officers. That ensures that the responding officers, when they arrive on scene, they know the very most important information and can act on it.
Dispatchers would benefit greatly, and the public, with the emergency response plan in place, if we know to ask that and that the caller actually has that. It'll cut down on superfluous questions we may be asking them. We can follow the plan and ask questions that are right on there, giving the correct answers quickly and with brevity, because that's always important. And it also has in place on there, if there's certain wishes or things they've already laid out, a plan that we can automatically go ahead and tell the deputy before they respond out there, giving them the necessary tools to adequately respond to the caller's needs as well as the person living with mental illness.
An emergency response plan would help both the consumer and the police officers responding to the scene. If you have one piece of paper that shows exactly the situation you're dealing with, what the diagnosis is, prior history, doctor, what works for the client, what doesn't work for the client, not only will it help the officers have all that information in one spot, it will help us provide a better service to the consumer.
Another good aspect of the emergency response plan is that if the person takes the time ahead of time to fill it out, or if they're with their family and they fill it out, they have some power in their treatment, because they're providing the information that says what's unique about them or what could be helpful to them, and that gives them a voice for the direction which they need to go.
If it's already filled out in advance, just like with any emergency plan for any type of emergency, if you've thought it out before, if you trained for it before, then it becomes second nature. When a PERT clinician or a law enforcement person arrive on scene during these crises, and just like a fire personnel would, they need to have specific information so they can provide the proper treatment, so that law enforcement can go down the proper trail. If medications are already documented, if physicians and their telephone numbers are readily available, instead of having to dig that up, that expedites the process for the patient. And then the patient can get the treatment that they need immediately. And law enforcement, it's already filled out. It's on a piece of paper. We're ready to go.
I generally start out getting some history. You don't happen to have your emergency response plan with you, do you?
Yes, I do. I carry it with me all the time.
Well, having an emergency response plan would just be smart. And it's smart for the consumer, and it's going to be smart for the family as well. I think it's going to put everybody's mind at ease, because it's just one thing that was pre-decided, and at a time in crisis when things seem really out of control and very chaotic, I think that you can pick up something and you can look at it and it's concrete and it's well thought out, and hopefully it's complete, that they filled every part of it out, and it's going to be empowering to family members as well as to the consumers, because not every mental health crisis is going to warrant hospitalization. In the event that they've got the emergency response plan in place, then law enforcement can move it a different direction by contacting a therapist. It gives them like a middle ground to go to instead of it having to be completely escalated or ignored at all. It gives them something in the middle to go to.
Mike had called 911. He was in distress because he's been out of this effexor for a couple of days.
As a family member, the emergency response plan is so important because, again, you're assisting your family member at a time of crisis by helping them prepare or them preparing this document that will be very useful at a time when they have a crisis. And I just can't stress enough that that can give you a peace of mind because, again, our family members don't always reside with us. So knowing that they have this document handy and that whenever there is the need for a call, they will have this form with all of the pertinent information that will make that engagement with law enforcement and the family member better.
You know, we sometimes hear concerns from family members or friends of people who consume mental health services about the emergency response plan in terms of the information it contains and that it may become part of law enforcement records. In reality, the plan is designed to document the most important and vital information particular to your family member or friend so that it's readily available for law enforcement when they arrive on scene and they can act on things effectively and quickly. If you have any concerns about how this information is used, please contact your local law enforcement agency. They can address that for you, but I can assure you that our goal here is to have vital information readily available for the officers, not to create additional records that the law enforcement agency would keep.
When you call 911 and you get a trained professional police officer coming out to your house or business or to deal with that family member who may be in crisis, know that that police officer is dedicated to provide a high level of service, and your loved one is our main concern. And our main concern to come out of that is to find some resources to get them the help that they absolutely need.
Thank you for your attention to this video. The Emergency Response Plan form will be made available to you through your mental health provider, through consumer support groups, law enforcement agencies, and other organizations such as NAMI and Mental Health America.